Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I am the Liaison Librarian for Nursing here at Greenleaf Library. And today we're going to talk a little bit about navigating library databases as you get started on your literature searches. Before we get started though, there are a few things we should keep in mind. First, that there are many paths to the same information. So what I'm going to show you today, I hope is helpful in getting you started and pointing in the right direction. It will give you some strategies and some tips, but it is by no means the only way to get to the information contained in the library's resources, excuse me. And depending upon your particular research need, may not even be the best way to access the information. But my hope is that it's enough to make you more familiar and comfortable with the library's resources and to get you pointed in the right direction. Similarly, that research is an iterative process, which means you may not find exactly what you're hoping to find on your first search. And that's normal. If it is extremely common to look at your clinical scenario, form your PICO elements, enter in your really great keywords, and just not find what you were hoping to find. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just that research is more of a process of being a detective or following a trail of breadcrumbs rather than this kind of step-by-step flowchart process. So it's very common you may need to go back and revise your search strategy by choosing different keywords, maybe expanding the patient population you're looking at, maybe starting in a different database, maybe looking at the medical subject headings in some of the search builders. Just know that it sometimes takes a couple of tries. And finally, that we're here to help. This is what librarians do. So depending on what your needs are, you can either hop on the library chat and get help in real time. You can schedule a research consultation with me, or if you happen to be on campus, you can just come on over to the library and talk to us. Alrighty, let's get started. Here's the clinical scenario that we are needing to find some evidence to make a decision on. A diabetic patient from a nursing home has recently been admitted with stage 3 pressure ulcers on his heels. The unit nurses have called you in for a wound consult. You have to choose between standard moist wound therapy and using a wound vac. So we've gone ahead and pulled out our PICO elements. So you can see our patient is diabetic patient with stage 3 pressure ulcers. The intervention we're looking at is a wound vac, or the clinical term most frequently used for that is negative pressure wound therapy, or comparing that with moist wound therapy. And for the time being, I've gone ahead and left the outcome unspecified because the scenario said you needed to choose between the two interventions, but it didn't necessarily, or it didn't at all actually, specify what outcome we are looking at. I mean, it's probably safe to assume maybe quicker or more thorough wound healing, but you could also be looking at pain. You could also be looking at infection risk. You could be looking at cost. You could be looking at all kinds of outcomes, and sometimes it's better to leave your search as broad as possible in the beginning and then narrow it down as you go. So we are going to go ahead and take those terms and head on over to the library's website, which is just rockhurst.edu/library, which takes us to our home page. Now, one of the questions I'm asked most frequently is which database should I use? And once again, there really is no one right answer to that question. But you should be aware that if you use this box that's in the center of the home page, this is EDS, EBSCO Discovery Service, or what we call a discovery search. And entering key terms in here searches across nearly all of the library's databases, which sometimes is a really wise place to start, particularly if you're looking for background information, if you're just getting started, and for particular disciplines like the humanities, this can be a really good place to start. Medical research tends to be a little bit more specific, and EDS doesn't give you as many filtering options as some of the other specific database interfaces do. And also, sometimes the same word can have really different meanings and contexts across different disciplines, so you may end up with a lot of irrelevant search results that you would have to then filter out. So for medical research, I tend to start in one of our health sciences specific databases. And one way to do that is to go over here to Databases A to Z. And as you've already heard me say, and you'll probably hear again, there's more than one way to get to the same information. But a good way to get to the health sciences databases is to go over here to the subject box and choose nursing from the drop-down menu. And this brings up a list of relevant databases. You see that there are 8 here, but these first 4 are likely to be your best bets. Today we'll start in CINAHL, which a little bit of trivia. CINAHL stands for Cumulative Index of Nursing and Allied Health Literature, which, as the name implies, focuses on nursing and allied health, whereas PubMed focuses on pretty much all of medicine. CINAHL and PubMed there's going to be some overlap in what they index. They do index a lot of the same sources, but as the name implies, CINAHL focuses on resources that are going to be most relevant for nursing. PubMed looks at all kinds of biomedical research, all of the medical specialties, excuse me, and subspecialties, plus chemistry, biochemistry, a little bit of physics, all kinds of things. PubMed is absolutely massive. But there are some things in CINAHL that aren't indexed on PubMed, but even more things that are on PubMed that aren't on CINAHL. Cochrane is interesting. Cochrane is made up of a board of medical experts that actually comb through PubMed and BASE and several of the other prominent medical databases, and they compile very reputable and highly regarded systematic reviews. Many of the Cochrane systematic reviews are also are also indexed on CINAHL and PubMed. And since we also subscribe to Cochrane, if you are, like today we'll search in CINAHL, if we find a search result that is a Cochrane systematic review, it will actually provide a link back over to Cochrane to retrieve it from there. So that also makes CINAHL a nice starting place. It doesn't, not all of Cochrane is indexed on CINAHL on PubMed, and it has some functionality that separate from those things, but just to give you a little bit of background of how all of these sources interact with each other. UpToDate is kind of its own thing, and I'll be creating a video a little bit later in the semester to talk about some of the unique features of UpToDate. But for today, we're just going to start. And in the CINAHL search interface, we are just going to take our PICO elements and use those as our keywords. So our patient had diabetic foot ulcers, and we are comparing negative pressure wound therapy and moist wound therapy. We're going to You'll see that the system does provide predictive text, which can be really helpful sometimes to help you come up with ideas, but just know that these are not generated by CINAHL as any kind of search recommended search strategy. It really just is predictive text based on what other users have entered in before. And depending on the skill of of people that have used the system before you, they may or may not be the most efficient way to search. So I usually just enter in my own search terms or use this as predictive text if I know exactly what I'm already wanting to enter. So we've got diabetic foot ulcer and negative pressure wound therapy and moist wound therapy. The system is going to be looking for articles that have all of these three concepts in the subject or abstract. Now, CINAHL gives you all of these tools to really fine-tune a very precise search right up front. For instance, you can specify the type of clinical question you're trying to answer. You can specify your patient demographics, all kinds of things to make a really precise search. But the more specific your search is for a very precise search, the higher chance the system has for inadvertently excluding relevant search results. So to start off, I tend to go fairly broad, take a look at what the system comes up with, because we can always go back and narrow it down later, either by rerunning the search with some of these tools used up front, or taking a look at our search results. There are some filters within the search results themselves here on the left-hand side of the screen that we can use. So our three key terms brought up 31 search results, which really isn't an overwhelming amount of information. It wouldn't be that onerous to go through and just scan each of these articles and kind of manually sort out the things that look relevant for your search. However, we can use these left-hand filters to clean things up a little bit. For instance, your assignments may sometimes specify a date range, so you can use these pre-filtered date ranges or enter in a custom date range. If we're making clinical decisions in the evidence-based practice model, we almost always want academic journals, so you can filter your results. So let's take a look at what we've got here. You'll find sometimes that there are articles that look very, very promising, but if it says request interlibrary loan, ILL, that means that the library doesn't actually subscribe to whichever journal contains this article, but it's a super easy process to request it from another library, so we'll come back to that. But let's say that you need an article right now. You don't have time to wait for ILL. You can also limit your results to full text. But full text results will look a little bit different depending on where CINAHL is pulling those articles from. So this is convenient. Sometimes the most obvious way is if it says PDF full text, you just click on that. You just click on the link. It gives you, as the name implies, a PDF of the article. You can download it, use it from there. Earlier I had talked about Cochrane reviews. Let me see if I can find one in these results. Here, this number 7, it says full text in Cochrane. If you click that link, it's going to open up the detailed record in the catalog. And sometimes it's hard to tell. You're like, well, where's the article? You actually have to click one more, view record within Cochrane Systematic Reviews. And that will actually pull up the full article in the Cochrane database. And then sometimes, like this article may or not be the outcome you're looking for, but let's just say for argument's sake that this is an article that you want. It doesn't look like we have access to it at all. It's really hard to tell, but since we have our search results filtered on full text, we should have access to it. So we'll click on that link, and again, it's a little bit misleading because it looks like there's no article here. But if you scroll all the way down where it says DOI, which stands for Digital Object Identifier, if you click on that link, it should take you to the full article. This happens when a journal is in an open access journal, which means we don't have to subscribe to the journal. It's freely available, and the database is just pulling the citation. It's sometimes a little bit hard to tell that that's where it's coming from. So if you open an article that looks promising and you don't see a way to access it, try scrolling all the way down to the DOI and clicking on that. Oops, let me go back to our search results. And now I'm going to take off this full text filter. And remember we talked about interlibrary loan? If you click that link, the system is going to take you over to OCLC. Okay, if it's the first time that you are requesting materials through interlibrary loan, it's going to ask you to set up an account, which just takes less than a minute. You need to put in your name, your email address, your student ID number, all that good stuff. But once you've done that, you never have to do it again. Once you have your OCLC account set up, the system will automatically recognize you as it did today. CINAHL should automatically pull in all of the information that the library needs to request this article from another library. But it's not a bad idea to go ahead and scan it and just make sure at least the title, author, and date and your email address have all imported before submitting your request. And then the library sends out an electronic request to literally thousands of libraries all over the country to see who has this article. And you will get an email in your Rockhurst email account when your article is ready for you to go in and download. Now, depending on when you're requesting and how readily available the resource is, this can happen as quickly as 20 to 30 minutes, or it could be a day or two. So it's always best to give yourself plenty of time when you are starting a research project. But like I said, it could be very, very quick, but if it's say if you request something at 2 o'clock in the morning on a weekend, that request won't be seen until Monday, and it can take a little while. If it's something that is only in print and needs to be manually scanned by another library and sent, that it can take a little longer. But generally, it's a pretty quick process, and ILL is a great way to expand access beyond the library's paid subscriptions, and don't shy away from using it. It really is a great resource for us. So just to review the ways to access the full text of an article, you'll often see a link to either a PDF or another database to access the full text of an article from there. But if you don't see that, go ahead and open up the citation record in your search results and scroll down to close to the end of that citation record and click on the DOI link, which should take you to the publisher's website. And if it's an open access journal, you'll be able to read the article there. And if that doesn't work, you can always request the item through ILL. Wrapping up, just a few reminders that it's often necessary to use more than one database. And be sure to allow yourself plenty of time, not only to conduct your search, but to then fully read the articles that you've selected to use to make sure that they indeed are offering the type of evidence that you need to make a decision, to give yourself time to go back and rerun a search if you need to, or to take advantage of the ILL service, or to ask for more help. Which leads me to the final, most important point of the day is that we're here to help. Hop onto the library's chat service, shoot me an email at sarah.winston@rockhurst.edu, or come on over to the library and say hi. Happy searching, and I will talk to you later.